Welcome to a deep dive into the Yi Jing. You know, that ancient Chinese text people have been turning to for guidance for centuries. And today we're going to be focusing on Hexagram 14, Da You.
Da You translates to possession in great measure, but it's much more nuanced than just like having a lot of stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely seems like there's more to it than that. So where do we even begin with something this complex?
We can start with the basics. The Yi Jing isn't about predicting the future. Think of it more as a roadmap for navigating the twists and turns of life and for understanding how change works and for making smart choices along the way.
Okay, so like a roadmap, not a crystal ball. Got it. So how does Da You fit into all of this? What kind of guidance does it offer?
Well, Da You specifically deals with the concept of abundance, but not just material wealth. It's about understanding the nature of prosperity in a holistic sense.
Okay, so that being said, the name itself, possession in great measure, it does seem to hint at material abundance, doesn't it?
It does. And the imagery associated with Da You definitely reinforces that. We have the trigram fire over heaven, symbolizing heavenly illumination, bringing abundance. Imagine a bright sunny day. You get the idea. Everything's bathed in warmth and light, and there's a sense of growth and potential.
But even the sunniest day eventually gives way to night, right?
Precisely. That's the reminder here. Good fortune, even when it feels plentiful, isn't necessarily permanent. Things change. It's that cyclical nature of life that the Yi Jing emphasizes so often. What goes up must come down, and vice versa. There's a specific Chinese phrase that captures this perfectly. Wu ji bai fan, which essentially means when things reach their extreme, they will revert.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty powerful concept, and I think a lot of people can relate to that idea of things coming full circle. I know I've definitely experienced it in my own life. What about you? Have you ever seen this principle play out in your own experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I remember a time...
Hold that thought. I think that's a story for part 2 of this deep dive. For now, let's get back to Da You and how it advises us to act when we are in a time of abundance.
Okay, so the Yi Jing isn't just about passive observation, is it? It's about taking action. And Da You has some interesting things to say about that. The oracle for this hexagram states, as one chops wood and catches birds, solid work is being done, and disputes will naturally dissipate.
So no lounging around just because things are going well.
Right.
We still have to put in the work.
Exactly. It's acknowledging that abundance, while potentially plentiful, still requires effort and focus.
Okay, so steady, consistent action is key. But what's the payoff? What does Da You promise if we approach abundance with this kind of diligence?
Well, according to the text, if you diligently seek reputation and profit, they will naturally come your way. Abundance isn't just handed to you. You have to actively work towards it.
That seems fair enough. Hard work and all that. It's almost like a formula. Focused action plus the right timing equals greater abundance. But didn't you mention earlier that there was more to Da You than just material wealth?
Right, and this is where things get a little more complicated. We have this imagery of the sun illuminating everything, which seems pretty positive. But the Yi Jing also points out that within Da You, there are 5 positive elements competing for 1 negative element.
Well, a 5 against 1 doesn't sound like a fair fight for that negative element. What's the significance of that?
It highlights the paradox of abundance. Even when things seem to be at their peak, there's already a seed of potential decline present. It goes back to that concept of Wu ji bi fan. Fullness implying upcoming deficiency. It's a core principle in the Yi Jing.
So even in times of great fortune, we need to be aware that things can change. That's a sobering thought. Have you ever noticed this in your own life? Where success was followed by unexpected challenges, or maybe you had a streak of good luck that eventually shifted?
Definitely. I think it's something worth thinking about. Have you experienced those kind of shifts and cycles in your own life?
I think we should save that conversation for part 2 as well. We are already getting pretty deep into Da You, and I'm curious about what it says about different areas of life. We talked about material wealth, but what about things like love, health, even finding lost things?
Da You doesn't shy away from specifics. In fact, it offers guidance on a variety of situations.
That's what I like to hear. So what does Da You have to say about finding love? Will it help me find my soulmate?
Well, according to Da You, if you're looking for a soulmate, it suggests that genuine connections will eventually lead to a happy union.
Sounds promising. What about health? Does Da You offer any advice for staying healthy?
It does, but it's a bit more cautious here. Da You indicates that while illnesses can be treated successfully, it's wise to pay attention to potential heart and lung issues.
Okay, so even when things are going well, don't neglect your health. What about those everyday annoyances like losing something important? Does Daiju have any advice for that?
Don't worry, Da You has you covered. It suggests that lost items will eventually be found. Well, it might take some time and effort.
Oh, that's reassuring. What about legal matters? Does Daiju offer any guidance for those sticky situations?
If you're facing a legal dispute, Da You points towards a satisfactory resolution. It seems to suggest that things will work out in your favor.
So it seems like Daiju isn't just about material abundance, but about prosperity in all aspects of life.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so relevant even thousands of years later. It offers this holistic perspective on prosperity that includes not just material wealth, but also fulfilling relationships, good health, and even the strength to overcome challenges.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack here. But before we get too lost in the bigger picture, I know there's even more nuance to Daiju. Tell me about those individual lines within the hexagram.
Ah, yes, the lines. Each of the 6 lines within Da You provides further insights and guidance. It's like zooming in on specific situations or stages within the overall theme of abundance.
It's like getting even more personalized advice. Can you give us an example of a particularly interesting line?
Sure. How about line 2? It says, a large wagon for loading. One can go somewhere. No blame.
Okay, so a wagon all loaded up and ready to go. It sounds like preparation and forward momentum. But doesn't that contradict the idea of staying grounded and not overextending ourselves, especially when things are good?
That's a great point. It's not about rushing into things haphazardly. Line 2 of Da You emphasizes being prepared to make the most of the opportunities that abundance brings. Imagine you have this large wagon ready to be loaded and taken somewhere. That somewhere is the potential that lies ahead, but you need to be properly equipped to get there.
So it's about being both ambitious and strategic. Not just about having a lot, but about knowing how to use what you have effectively.
Exactly. It's like saying, yes, there's abundance, but don't just sit on it. Utilize it, move forward, create something meaningful with it. But remember, that forward momentum should be guided by wisdom and careful planning, not just a blind pursuit of every opportunity that comes your way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement of possibility when things are good, but it's important to stay grounded and make conscious choices.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to something we touched on earlier, the cyclical nature of fortune. Remember that Chinese phrase, Wu Ji Bi Fan? When things reach their extreme, they will revert. I think this principle is so crucial to understanding Da You.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit, but I'm still wrapping my head around what it really means in a practical sense.
Well, for me, it's about recognizing that even during times of great success and prosperity, there's always the potential for things to shift. It's not about being pessimistic, but rather about cultivating a healthy sense of detachment, the highs and lows of life.
Detachment, isn't that a bit, detached? Like not fully engaging with life?
Not necessarily. It's more about finding a balance between enjoying the abundance while it's present and understanding that it might not last forever. It's about staying grounded and not getting too attached to any particular outcome.
So it's not about denying the good things when they happen, but also not clinging to them so tightly that we're devastated when they inevitably change.
Exactly. It's about riding the waves of life with a sense of awareness and equanimity.
I like that analogy. It's about surfing those waves of fortune, knowing that some will be big and exciting and others might be smaller or even a bit choppy.
You got it. And that awareness allows us to navigate those waves more skillfully, whether they're bringing us abundance or challenges.
You know, you mentioned earlier that you had a personal experience with this Wu Ji Bai fan principle. I'm really curious to hear that story now.
Oh, yes. I'd almost forgotten. It was a few years ago, and I was working on this project that was really important to me.
Wait a minute. I think this is a perfect spot to take a little break and come back for part 3. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. We'll pick up this story and continue our deep dive into Da You in the next part. So as I was saying, a few years ago, I was working on this project that was really important to me. It was going so well. Everything just seemed to fall into place. And I was really feeling that Daiju energy, you know.
It sounds like you were really riding that wave of abundance we were talking about. What kind of project was it?
It was a book I was writing. Actually, about the Yi Jing.
Oh, wow. That's pretty ironic. So you were experiencing Daiju while writing about Daiju. That must have felt pretty meta. But you said things took a turn, right?
Yeah, they did. I hit a wall. Writer's block, you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, the ideas just dried up, and I felt completely stuck. Like that sun we were talking about had suddenly set, and I was left fumbling in the dark.
Ugh, that sounds so frustrating. What did you do?
Well, at first I kind of panicked. You know, I thought I'd lost my connection to the material. that the abundance of inspiration had abandoned me. But then I remembered Wu Ji Bi Fan.
Uh-huh. So you recognize that this downturn was just part of the natural cycle, not a sign that you'd done something wrong.
Exactly. And that realization was incredibly freeing. Instead of resisting the block, I decided to lean into it. Took a break from writing, spent time in nature, reconnected with myself, and eventually the inspiration started flowing again.
That's a great example of how understanding Wuji Bai Fan can really help us navigate those inevitable shifts in fortune. It's not about avoiding the lows, but about knowing that they're temporary and part of a larger process.
Precisely. And I think it's a message that's particularly relevant when we're talking about Da You,
Right.
It's easy to get swept up in the excitement of abundance and forget that nothing lasts forever.
Right. That's a good reminder for all of us, I think. But let's be real, even with that awareness, it can be tough to stay grounded when things are going well. Are there any specific things we can do to avoid getting too caught up in the highs of Da You energy?
Absolutely. One practice that's incredibly helpful is cultivating humility. Remembering that even in times of great success, we're still part of something larger than ourselves. Acknowledging the role that luck, timing, and the support of others have played in our achievements.
So not letting success go to our heads, basically.
Exactly. It's about staying connected to the bigger picture, and recognizing that our individual accomplishments are often the result of many different factors coming together.
That makes a lot of sense. What other practices can help us stay grounded in the midst of abundance?
Another important practice is discernment. Abundance often brings a flood of options, and it's crucial to choose wisely, focusing on what truly aligns with our values and goals, rather than getting distracted by every shiny object that comes our way.
So being strategic with our choices, even when there are a lot of tempting possibilities on the table.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing quality over quantity and making sure that our actions are in alignment with our deepest aspirations.
That's such a valuable reminder, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with choices. Any other tips for navigating deity energy?
One more that I think is essential is gratitude. Taking the time to appreciate the abundance that's present in our lives, both big and small, helps us stay connected to the source of that abundance. It's like saying thank you to the universe for all the good things we're experiencing.
Yeah, it sounds like cultivating gratitude is a way of acknowledging and honoring the abundance that's already present, which in turn can attract even more abundance, like a positive feedback loop.
You got it. Gratitude is like a magnet for more good things to come our way.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into Da You. We've explored the symbolism, the call to action, the potential pitfalls, and even some practical tips for staying grounded.
It's been a fascinating journey.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights just how much wisdom is contained within the Yi Jing,
Yeah.
even for those of us living in the modern world.
Totally agree. It's like these ancient teachings still have so much to offer us, even thousands of years later. Well, dear listener, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Da You. We hope this exploration has given you a new perspective on abundance and how to navigate it wisely. Remember, Da You isn't just about material wealth. It's a guide to cultivating prosperity in all areas of life. So as you go about your week, we invite you to reflect on this question. How can you apply the wisdom of Da You to your own life? Where do you see opportunities for focused action, building trust, recognizing the potential for change within periods of success, and cultivating gratitude for the abundance that's already present? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.